Hello everyone and welcome to another very exciting game from the SuperUnited Rapid Blitz tournament currently being played in Croatia. It is Magnus Carlsen against one of his seconds, Jorden Foreest. We've seen a game in the previous video where Jani Pomniši lost terribly to Ivan Šarić, who is also a member of Magnus Carlsen camp. They both helped Magnus prepare for his World Chess Championship match against Jani Pomniši. But here we will see how Magnus deals with Jorden's very interesting approach to the English opening, and a very interesting position arises already as of move 8. So let's see what happens. Magnus has the white pieces and he opens with c4. He opts for the English opening with e5, going for the King's English variation, g3 and d5 now, striking in the center right away. Captures, now the queen attacks the rook on h1, and of course knight to f3. We have knight to c6 and now knight to c3. And I believe at the time this game was played, Jorden was co-leading the tournament with Alireza. So if Jorden can get a draw or a win here, it would definitely go a long way. Queen back to d8 and now bishop to g2. Now this has all been played before. Knight to f6. We have castles by Magnus, and now bishop to e7. And here there are a couple of games that reach this position, but in none of them the move that Magnus actually plays was played. And here Magnus plays the move from the thumbnail, and that is pawn to b4. It is definitely the best move in this position, but it is also a fairly good move in some other positions. None come to mind at the moment, but I'm sure you guys are familiar with some of them. So here, how do you continue? Can you capture the pawn? Is knight captures or bishop captures an option? Well, knight captures not so really. You lose the e5 pawn, but funny thing is, if bishop captures, you also give up the e5 pawn. And now after knight captures, we just play queen to a4 check, and now we're going to pick up the bishop, or if knight goes back, defends the bishop. Now we eliminate the defender of the bishop. The pawn captures, queen captures here. It's equal material, but we've messed up black's pawn structure, and white is much better here, preventing black from castling. It's just a bad position for black. So instead, after this pawn to b4, which is a new move, we have pawn to e4, chasing away the knight, so we don't have to worry about knight captures on e5. And only after knight to g5 is played, now Jorden plays bishop captures on b4. We have knight g captures on e4 by Magnus, knight captures, we have knight captures, and now Jorden just castles. We have a3, chasing away the bishop, bishop to e7, and now bishop to b2. The material is completely even. Both players have the bishop pair. However, Magnus does have the strong center, and you will see just what a strong center can mean for a chess game. So rook to e8, we have rook to c1, and both players just continuing development, and the bishop to f8, giving the e file to the rook. However, also guarding that g7 pawn. You know that it's going to be a problem at some point. So e3, we have bishop to f5, and now knight to c5, attacking the b7 pawn. So rook to b8, and now pawn to d4. Starting to control that center, we have knight to a5, and now pawn to e4, attacking the bishop, bishop g6, and now f4. Now, like I said, equal material, but look at Magnus's central control here. So b6, chasing away the knight, and now Magnus plays knight to a6, attacks the rook and also the c7 pawn. It's attacked twice now. So bishop captures on e4. Problem is, if you play something like rook to c8, f5 traps the bishop, and Jorden cannot allow this. So instead, he goes for bishop captures on e4. He grabs a pawn, but will have to give up the exchange. And okay, bishop captures, rook captures, and now Magnus grabs the rook on b8. Knight captures, queen captures, and now rook to e1 offers a rook trade. So he is up the exchange, but Jorden is up a pawn, and it's Magnus still has to work very hard for his meal. So rook captures, and queen to d8 now. We have queen to c3. Now you don't have to worry about something like d5 and queen captures on g7, as the bishop is nicely positioned here, but as long as it's nicely positioned here, it's not really all that useful somewhere else. So c6, also the c7 pawn is hanging, so Jorden just pushes it to c6. We have queen to f3 now, and pawn to b5. Now here, with a move like h6, the game still is somewhat playable, but after this pawn to b5 move, Jorden allows Magnus truly a brilliant idea to be executed. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find this basically only move that allows Magnus to push this game for a win, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this, crazy idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is pawn to d5. Yes, it seems like really weird, but usually in positions, where you really have a problem with your own pawn is blocking the bishop, sometimes that's all you have to do. And here there's even a special trick involved, because if black would play queen captures on d5, then d5 would be a silly move. However, if queen captures on d5, then we win on the spot. Just queen captures on d5, c captures, and rook to c8, and black resigns. There is no defense against the bishop c3, bishop b4. Whoops, that's a wrong arrow. And the bishop on f8 will fall. Even if black tries to defend, let's say knight c4 attacks the bishop, now knight c3, knight d6 attacks the rook, still not a problem. Or even if, maybe even better, bishop to d4, let's say knight to d6 attacks the rook, we just move the rook. And now again, bishop to c5 is coming. There's no useful move to make. And if you try something like f6, bishop c5, and king f7 to unpin the bishop, so now the bishop can capture the knight, now you fall for rook captures on f8. King captures and bishop captures here. Now white is up a full piece and of course completely winning. So that's why here d5 is so strong. So this is what Magnus played. And now you don't really have a good reply to this. You could go something like queen to b6, king moves, and then c5, but then Magnus gets the passed c pawn, the passed d pawn, or you go for what Jorden played, c captures on d5, and now rook to d1. Now the pawns are much weaker, and Magnus will of course win the d pawn. Knight to c4 attacks the bishop, but just rook captures on d5. We have queen to e7. Now comes bishop to d4, and again you cannot go after the a pawn, even though that'd be great, because then Jorden would have two connected passed pawns. But if knight captures, just bishop c5, and of course again you resign. If queen captures on a3, which seems possible, as you can trade queens, it still doesn't work. Captures, and now after rook to d8, again no defense against bishop to c5. So you can see that even though this bishop is a great defender, it's also a pretty big liability here. So after bishop d4, queen to e1 check by Jorden, we have king to g2 by Magnus, and now queen back to e8, not allowing Magnus to occupy the back rank with the rook. Bishop captures on a7, and only now bishop captures on a3. We have bishop back to f2, and now bishop back to f8. So now Jorden does have the passed b pawn, but it's not very easy to push it. We have queen to d3, now going for queen to d8, and we have queen to a8, now pinning the rook, king to h3, and now queen to c8 with check, hoping for king to g2 and queen to a8. Maybe he can get a repetition, but Magnus not interested. He just pushes f5, and now we have bishop to e7. Of course, we have to see what happens if pawn to b4. If this is playable, then it could be a problem for Magnus, but just bishop c5 and Jorden can resign. There's nothing to play here. The knight is hanging. Also, just rook to d8 will be a problem. Bishop captures, queen captures. Let's say rook to d8 will win the queen. So here you're going to have to play bishop captures on c5, but then queen captures on c4, and again bishop will fall. You're up a full rook, completely winning. So after f5, bishop to e7 by Jorden, but now comes rook captures on b5, and without this pawn there really is no counterplay here. So h5, finally creating some breathing room for the king, and also now starting just a total attack against the white king, because that's your only chance. Maybe Magnus blunders something. Rook to d5, and now pawn to g5. We have king back to g2, and queen to c6. Now again pinning the rook, but now king to g1. Magnus never actually had to go to h3. He could just play king to g1 to start with, but I guess he had his reasons. Bishop to d6. This is one last trick, but Magnus does not fall for it. He just plays rook to d4. Now attacks the knight. The knight has to move, and then the bishop will fall. So knight to e5, and now rook captures on d6, saying, okay, you capture my queen, I'm gonna capture your queen. So here knight to f3 with check, and here Magnus played king to h1, and it was in this position on move 43 that Jorden Foreest resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. But it's an interesting try. Even though you're down material, if Magnus for some reason plays king to g2, king f1 and king h1 are fine, but if he plays king to g2, then you run into this most unpleasant double check. Knight e1, it's a double check from the queen and the knight, and then the king has to move. If you go to the back rank, let's say here, of course, you get checkmated. It doesn't help if you go to h3, queen to g2 is still checkmate. So your only option here would be to play king to f1, but this still loses because we just moved the queen with check, and next move we pick up the white queen. So bishop g1, knight captures here, and yes, okay, you're going to capture the knight, but queen against bishop and rook wins this easily. So Magnus, of course, avoided this after knight f3 checking. h1 was played, and it was, like I said, in this position that Jorden resigned the game, and Magnus gets a very, very important victory for the tournament standings. But we're going to show one more game from the final day of the Rapids, and then we are going to discuss the standings and how it went for everyone. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it, as the two of them really know each other well. They've prepared together to beat Jan in the World Chess Championship match. It's very hard to surprise, either of them. But here Jorden tried with a specialty, but Magnus was ready, and at the right moment, where no one before played it, he played b4, and that was enough to win the game, obviously. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Gordon Mercer, Tsanko Tsolov, Rai Travis, Michael Kalberer, and Kevin Klein for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful tournament until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.